Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo.
Hello and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. This episode, I am going to talk all about food freedom. This idea of being free from food is a concept and a language that's being used all over the internet, and it's becoming to take a lot, there's a lot of popularity behind it, and it's actually a really beautiful thing if it's true food freedom. So I thought, why don't I take some time to define that? You've listened to clients provide testimonials. You've heard me talk about it before. If you go to my website under the coaching tab, I have a video about my program where I talk about how I'm going to get you to this place of food freedom. But I don't think I've ever really fully defined it. And if I have, it hasn't been on a podcast platform. And the reason why I decided to do this episode is because I was just talking to a client and we had made the association between, she recognized that she has this fear, although she hasn't been binging. So she came to me because she had a very unhealthy relationship with food. She pigeonholed foods in a good versus bad category, had obsessive amounts of food guilt when eating something that was on the quote unquote off limits list. And it was this vicious cycle of being all in versus all out. And all in usually meant very restrictive, very rigid, and all out usually meant binging. And just, it was kind of all over the place. And it was just this vicious cycle. And that's what she hired me for, to help her with that. And so we've been working together for about 3 months now. She hasn't been binging. She's been really eating things like bagels without any food guilt. She really feels in charge of her food choices. At the same time, she's also working with me now that we are healing her relationship with food and really close to kind of it really being solidified. We are now transitioning to the part where we are discussing potentially helping her with weight loss, because that's also important to her. And this is a tricky point, right? Because when you are used to learning how to quote unquote lose weight, even though we know it comes back from a place of restriction, we have this association that us being mindful and aware of our food choices is the only way to lose weight. And so now this place of having food freedom and not really thinking and obsessing over our food choices is going to be associated with weight gain. And I thought this was really interesting because she said, when we talk about mindfulness and healthy eating, we think of it in a positive way. But the way she kind of made the connection is her way of being mindful with her food choices was extreme restriction. And so we really need, if you really want to achieve food freedom, we need to disassociate that you believe that mindfulness means that you have to be super rigid and restrict with your food. We have to disconnect those two, because then what happens after that period of restriction is we know after that leads to binging. And the reason why people get caught up in binging is because their perception is, I don't care. I want to be free from the rigidity that I had put on myself. So now they associate freedom with binging and weight gain. And my job is to uncomplicate those things and untie those things and help you to recognize that food freedom and binging do not go together. Okay. So in order for me to help you do that, we need to first define what is food freedom. How do I know I'm on a road to being free from food? Okay, so in simple terms, food freedom is to eat without restriction or diet rules. It's helping you, it's you becoming completely autonomous over your food choices. So a way I explain it is my clients feel in charge. They feel empowered. They understand the why behind every single choice that they make. And they're able to find pleasure with food without guilt or punishment. But that's just the beginning, because food freedom is just the gateway to, I call it like your gateway drug. It's just the gateway for you to, if you think about it, if you're not obsessing over your food, right? If what you ate and how you looked didn't take up about 90% of your headspace, what would you think about? What would you spend time doing? You have this mind that's holding you back, and you've used food and you're being obsessed and generally like overconsumed about your body as a way to hold you back from what you truly are put and born to do in this world and to do in this life, right? So all of these stories that you have in your head that tell yourself that you're supposed to look this way or be this way or blah, 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 blah. It's honestly just being when you're obsessed with food, it's kind of like allowing these stories to be truth, but they're not true. When you finally tear back those layers and get to this place of food freedom, you start to recognize that, oh my gosh, I've been living this life that really I deserve better. I've kind of just been settling for things because I've kind of just felt like that's what I'm supposed to do and that's what how I'm supposed to be. But when you start to finally pay attention to what your wants are, what your needs are, what your values are, you start to get really strong and confident in who you are as a person, and you start to speak up for what you want, and it's outside of food, and it becomes so much bigger than that. And so really, what food freedom is, it's just the gateway to you really truly living the life that you deserve. And if you're already living the life that you deserve and you come to that point of food freedom, it's learning to actually be able to truly enjoy it and be present with it rather than stuck in your brain and obsessed about things outside of, what's actually important. Okay. So if you're looking for the signs of that you're healing your relationship with food and you're actually progressing closer to finding food freedom, I'm going to give you a few examples that'll help you know that you're on your way there. So you can insert whatever your quote unquote unhealthy food item would be. So for my client, it was bagels. For others, it's pasta. For others, it's rice. I mean, unfortunately, this list can be really, really long. It could be candy. It could be cookies. Whatever it is, you insert unhealthy food item without guilt because you no longer see food as good or bad. Okay. You exercise. I know it's not so much related to food, but it kind of is, right? So you exercise because you want to, because you appreciate what your body can do for you, not because you're trying to burn calories or make room for food or punish yourself for over consuming said food. Okay. You go to a restaurant and you order what you really want rather than the healthiest option on the menu. And this took a long time for me. At one point in my journey, I've shared this before, I had what you would probably call orthorexia. I was generally just obsessed with anything healthy. It wasn't even so much of, I didn't really care about portions. It just had to be healthy. And I would go to restaurants and I would automatically look for the healthiest thing option on the menu and just get that. I wouldn't let myself explore or figure out or decide even if I wanted that. And then likely when that happens, you feel unsatisfied and you end up overeating as a result. And it could be a bag of, even though at that point it was like a bag of carrots and a whole Tupperware of hummus, that's still not necessarily something where I probably, if I would have gotten something that I had enjoyed and I really wanted, I wouldn't have looked to try to satisfy and compensate in other ways. I could have just enjoyed eating what I wanted and just been done with it. Okay. Another way to know that you're on the road to food freedom and you're progressing towards that is you forget about the chips in your pantry or the ice cream in the freezer. There's literally it's not even a joke. Like it's so funny because it's so true. It's been happening where I bought these. They were like coconut ices that were covered in dark chocolate. And I bought them and I put them in my freezer and I was really looking forward to trying it. But I'm not someone, because I really am I have with food freedom, I don't think about that stuff that's in my freezer. I buy it for the occasional moment when I feel like I want something sweet, right? So I buy that. Maybe about a week or two later, I open up the freezer and there's none in there. And then I close it. I'm like, okay. And then I noticed that I figured my boyfriend is the one who ate the whole box. So I decide to get it again. I get it again. About a week or so later, my boyfriend goes to me, okay, so there's only one of the coconut ices left. They're really good. is it okay if I have the last one? And I was like, okay, I guess it's fine, whatever. And I can't even tell you how many times that happened, because to me, that's like, I forget that it's even in there. But then when I remember, it's nice for me to be able to go in it. And so finally we kind of created a system where he has to just leave one left. He just can't even have the whole box. But all that to say that like really food freedom is being able to buy those things and not even recognizing that they're there. And because you know that you can have it. You can have it whenever you want it. So it's not calling your name. You don't feel like you have to finish the whole container or the whole box because you're quote unquote not allowed to ever have it ever again. You know that you're able to have it whenever you want it. And so therefore you have it when you want it. And so that's a way for you to know that you're progressing towards food freedom. And then lastly, you're not constantly thinking about food. I think that's the easiest one. And that's where, my clients, when they get to that place where they're really starting to make headway, they'll say that to me. They'll say, Toni, I can't believe it. Like there was a moment where I had to remember, like I ended up making myself dinner, but I almost was like, oh, okay, like it's time for me to eat dinner, versus where the old me would be obsessing and worrying about what am I going to have for dinner? How is this going to work? Can I have this? Can I have that? Can I have to make this? I want to order that. And it would have been a whole day ordeal. Right? But now it's kind of just like, oh, I recognize when I'm hungry, I satisfy it, I eat when I'm hungry, and I stop when I'm full, and I keep it moving. Okay? So those are a few of the ways for you to know that you are striving towards food freedom. Those are the things to be striving for, not a number on the scale. You can be working towards a certain weight or body size, or hopefully more so a feeling of strong or confident, but at the end of the day, that cannot be your only focus, is just a number on a scale. The things that we just listed above are so much more important. And without that, any sort of goal that you do achieve, and I'm putting it in quotes, my air quotes, is just not really, they're not sustainable. It's likely going to go away. And so having a healthy relationship with food is that foundation for you. So if you're looking for ways to achieve food freedom, I recommend going to www.tipswithtoni.com/coaching. I am not accepting I'm not working with anybody new right now, but who knows when you're listening to this. And I think the sooner you decide to apply to work with me, the sooner you get on the waiting list, which means the sooner you will be closer to food freedom. In the meantime, I highly recommend my course, the Healthy Livings Foundations course, which can also be found on my website, www.tipswithtoni.com/courses. It's a great way to get started. The very first module addresses mindset, and from there you learn all about all of the things that you need to know to build that solid, healthy foundation so you can be further and closer on your way to food freedom. Has a great group support. It's been growing. The support group chat is amazing. I love them. Everyone is just doing such a great job. I'm so proud of them. I wanted to say thank you to you for listening. If you're listening to this, it is September 30th, 2020. Last night, I made the impromptu decision to take a little pause from social media. So the fact that you're listening to me on here shows that you support me in more ways than one. And I really appreciate you. I'll probably be back on social soon. I'll be definitely recording an episode about kind of why I decided to take the break from social media, what I'm doing in the process. So more on that to come in future episodes. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. I am Toni Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.